to its fifth day under foreign occupation. The night was one of terror. Nobody yet knows how many people were killed and wounded. On Czechoslovak territory is 600,000 from the nation.
Okay, hi guys, and welcome to the show. Something short and sweet, but very special indeed, I want to share with you today. And I think every watch enthusiast, if you're not aware of this already, then you will definitely find it of interest. Now, of course, I'll do my quick wristwatch check before I get into this, and it will pale in comparison to the one we're discussing today. Wearing my SKX 013. This is my Hunter Pro mod, or I like to call it the Baby Panther due to its blacked out look. Anyway, I'm not going to talk about my beloved SKX for the 1000th time. Today we're talking about a very important wristwatch check, possibly the most famous, actually definitely the most famous, and without a shadow of a doubt, a wristwatch check that changed the world. And I had no intention of doing a video about this particular book or its contents. This I bought just for my own enjoyment as a kind of coffee table book. I had been reading about it online. I'm a massive fan of photography. In here there's everything from Robert Capa, Annie Leibovitz, Robert Mapplethorpe, Lang, Henriette Cartier-Bresson, you name it. All the most influential, iconic, there we go. There's Joe Rosenthal's flag-raising Iwo Jima. And I think this highlights a really important point. Photographs can be incredibly powerful. They can sum up entire generations, an entire age. There's a very, very relevant, the moon landing, and of course, dear old Speedy there. Yeah, they can sum up entire eras, a movement, a conflict. Here we have Robert Capa's D-Day landings, massively important. And what I love about this particular book is that it goes from everything to, you know, the turn of the century to contemporary selfies. However, there was one shot, and here we go, that I was really pleasantly surprised they included. And this is, of course, Josef Koudelka's hugely iconic and influential wristwatch shot from 1968. This is from the invasion of Prague. Now, if you're not familiar with Josef Koudelka, he is, in my opinion, and in the opinion of many, one of the most important photojournalists of the 20th century. And this, what seems like a normal wristwatch check, which we all take for granted now, and we're all busily doing on our Instagrams as watch-obsessed maniacs, this very much is ahead of its time. So Josef Koudelka, he actually was an engineer, and a year before this photo was taken, he had quit his job to pursue photography, which was his main passion. And he is, of course, from Czechoslovakia, and he just happened to be in Prague when one of the most crucial events of the late 60s occurred. So fearing Dubček's human rights reforms in Czechoslovakia would lead to a democratic uprising like they did in Hungary in 1956, the Soviet forces sent in the tanks to quash this movement. The tanks rolled into Czechoslovakia on August 20th, 1968, as this photograph was taken. And while they quickly seized control of Prague, they ran up against unexpected masses of flag-waving citizens who then threw up barricades, stoned tanks, overturned trucks. They even removed street signs in order to confuse the troops. A young Josef Koudelka was there. He picked up his camera. He was already a very experienced and incredible photographer, but he was virtually unknown. Well, he was completely unknown. He took a series of very gritty photographs. They really set a new level in terms of photojournalism for their realism, and he captured these incredibly moving scenes. With the swirling turmoil around him, he was able to create this groundbreaking record of the invasion. And this would eventually change the course of his nation. And most remarkably is that he smuggled these pictures out. He used the pseudonym of PP, which stood for Prague Photographer, because Koudelka feared reprisals from the KGB. These photographs were then smuggled into London. They were published in the Sunday Times. They changed the world because the outside of the Iron Curtain, little was really known, and the world got to see this important event unfold. He was subsequently awarded the Overseas Press Club Award, the Robert Capa Gold Award for photography requiring exceptional courage, and that was one of many, many accolades over the years. His work even then received support and acknowledgement from his friend, or what was to become his later friend, probably one of the most important and certainly my favorite photographer, Henri Cartier-Bresson himself. At first glance, it seems like an innocent wristwatch check with that very recognizable Prague main street there, and you can see the skid marks of the prams, but nothing's happening. It's desolate, it's empty. This is moments before, literally seconds before, the tanks rolled in. I love the inclusion of his wrist. This is his own wrist. Of course, this being 1968, it's definitely a mechanical timepiece. This is pre-quartz, of course. Now, I've done a lot of research to try and find out what this particular watch actually was, and unfortunately to no avail. From what I can tell in the photograph, possibly with sub-seconds at the 6 o'clock. As for the brand, unknown, but it appears to be on one of those stretchy metal bracelets. What is interesting is the watch is out of focus. The focus is on the street behind. And this is a rare occurrence that he was actually including himself in the picture. Perfectly encapsulates this kind of feeling of anticipation, of loss, of emptiness. Very much is symbolic of the political and social strangling of Prague and Czechoslovakia itself. There is a kind of desperation, a dread here as well. It does remind me slightly of kind of Day of the Dead or 28 Days Later, that uneasy feeling. And it's not until you know of the context and the story behind this picture that you begin to understand its significance and really understand why it's so important. People visiting Prague these days will make a tribute to this photo. It's become that famous and that important. And you'll see people throwing up their wristwatch checks, which I just think is wonderful. The watch being present also gives the picture a feeling of urgency. Koudelka's visual memories of the unfolding conflict, brutality of the attack, the challenges by the Czech citizens, it redefined photojournalism. The smuggled negatives made it to the Magnum agency, which then published them anonymously in Sunday Times magazine. We have to remember, during the Cold War, this was extremely dangerous, not only to himself, but his family living in Czechoslovakia as well. Koudelka's pictures of the events became dramatic international symbols of the struggle against repression and for freedom of the Czechoslovakian and dare I say it, the wider world as well. With the Magnum agency, Koudelka then applied for a visa and he fled to England in 1970. He applied for political asylum and he stayed there for 3 decades working on subsequent books that then became hugely significant, and he finally was recognized as the photographer of immense talent that he is. And I highly recommend you check out his 1975 book Gypsies, also the 1988 book Exiles, and Chaos in 1990. I was very privileged to see an exhibition in London as a child, although far beyond my understanding at the time. You can undoubtedly see the magic, the tension, the emotion, the genius of his composition in his work. This picture went on to inspire whole generations of photojournalists, and he continues to work to this day, exploring with little more than a camera and the proceeds from grants and his awards that keep him going. He really is like a nomad with a camera. It's quite remarkable. Despite his fame and his acclaim, he's still out there taking incredible images for us to enjoy. So I was really pleasantly surprised to see his inclusion in this 100 photographs. Whenever I do a top 10 list of anything, people will say, oh, you should include that, you should include... Well, there are thousands of influential images. Personally, I would have loved to see some Man Ray included, but I totally recommend this book all the same. If you're into photography, there's a lot of incredible photographs. Some of them are shocking, some of them are harrowing, some of them are beautiful, inspiring, and I think the book eloquently explains each photo, and justifiably this is an absolute must. So guys, I'm going to leave it there. Please don't forget to add your thoughts, queries, comments, opinions, and nominations of books about photography that I should check out in the comments below, please. Thank you so much for watching. Please don't forget to like this video if you enjoyed it and found it useful, and as always guys, I will catch you in the next one. Okay, ciao.